remember that one episode where Carl had Jimmy's mom in a jar and he got a real suspicious smile on his face. More on Jimmy Neutron after the break. Hello, my dearests. Welcome back to Hero versus the Bucket List. Now we get to talk about Jimmy. It's the Twonkies, Jimmy. This is a game that I picked up on a whim from the local game shop that we have. The one that's not GameStop. And they have a very limited GameCube selection, but the titles come in every once in a while. There'll be like bursts of like someone sold their GameCube collection, and there's a bunch of new GameCube games to ogle at. And there'll be a solid mix of like really like high-end like collector's item GameCube games, and then just like these licensed games that we all played as a kid. This was one of those ones that appeared one day. It's also a game that was advertised in a lot of licensed games that I played growing up, but I never got around to this one specifically. Like, there was a SpongeBob movie game that had a little ad for the Jimmy Neutron game in it. And it was smart. It was a smart way to market to kids, because I always wanted to eventually play this Jimmy Neutron game.
Stuck with you.
Yep. And so finally, as a 27-year-old, I'm not that old. As a 26-year-old, I get to play this game. So let's talk about it. Let's see what's going on in here. This is a weird case for a licensed game, or a weird situation. The case is fine. But it's weird because it's not based off of a lot of Jimmy Neutron or like a movie. It's based off a single episode. Granted, it was one of those double-length episodes that last the whole 30-minute block instead of half of it. But it was like, how are you going to get a whole video game out of a small 30-minute episode? And I watched the episode back, and it wasn't even the most action-packed Jimmy Neutron episode. It really just seems like they liked these Twonky enemies and wanted to make a game out of it. Because the episode that it's pulling from, it would be really hard to do like a one-to-one adaptation of the story that's told in the episode. So it's just kind of odd. A lot of like stretching and padding for what content this game features. Starting with the tutorial of the game. It's one of those slow tutorials, kids first tutorial type of energy. This one, I really felt it of can we get through this? But the redeeming quality of that was the tutorial took place in Jimmy's lab, which was pretty fun, getting to run around Jimmy's lab. The show always portrays it very vaguely, and there's a lot of dark, shadowy places, and the tutorial kind of does that too. There's a lot of invisible walls and like dark areas in it, and all the inventions they do show off, which are supposed to be iconic, like from the show, like fan service elements. I only really remembered the plant thing. There's like a girl eating plant in the show, and there was other stuff where I was like, I think it's supposed to be an Easter egg, but I really don't remember it. I'm either not the biggest Jimmy Neutron fan, or it just like wasn't super well catered. They didn't pick the best stuff for that. They have an intro cutscene for the game, which is literally ripping the episode audio from the episode. It's the same exact thing, but they chose to reanimate it for the video game. So if you remember how uncanny Jimmy Neutron the cartoon is, like think of it being PS2 quality level cutscene. It's like they've managed to make it more gross looking. And it was truly a marvel to watch the two side by side, the original episode and the video game cutscene. It really made me respect how good Jimmy Neutron looks.
Hello, children! Ah! Get it off me! Down, boy! Down! Whose comet is this? Oh, that tickles! Oh, stop talking! I'm happy.
There's also this plot in the original episode where Libby is petitioning to have her favorite band play for, they're commemorating a brand new library in the episode. That's the main episode plot point, is they're like, this is the grand opening of the library. and we're all gonna sing for the grand opening. Sheen really wants to sing, but his voice is annoying, and that's the joke, is that we don't want him in singing for the library grand opening. Meanwhile, Libby is like, I want my favorite band Greystar to play at the show. The video game changes it. They're like, we don't care about Libby's plot, so we're just gonna say they are playing at the show. They're like, the kids are gonna sing, except for Sheen, because he sucks. And also Libby's band is gonna play. Music is gonna become relevant to the Twonkies later. I will explain the show subplot because it's like weird, but they just don't bring it up in the video game. Where Libby, in order to petition for Greystar to play at the library event, she goes around petitioning to people and nobody wants to sign for it because they're like, we don't care about your band, little girl. And then she's like, actually, this petition is to save puppies. And then she's like, it's also gonna save orphans. And she's saying like all this like good charity stuff that it's gonna do. And so it's setting up for this thing where people are like, wait, you told us this was going towards something good and it was just for a band to play. But it just kind of happens and the band shows up. And Libby doesn't get in trouble for lying to all these people. And it's just like a plot thread that they don't follow through on. It's really odd. And I think that might be why the video game dropped it. Because they're like, ultimately, how do we tie this into a video game? It's just kind of weird and doesn't get resolved. So her band's just gonna be there, and it's not gonna be a thing where she fake petitions to save orphans. Yeah, so that happened. That was a thing. So the only thing that the game cares about is the library grand opening. The big thing with the library grand opening is there's like this musical performance that's going to be tied to it. Jimmy is like, this rare comet called Twonkies is flying through space. I'm gonna hop there with Goddard and get some crystals because I'm a science boy. And also, I totally forgot that in the Jimmy Neutron universe, they just breathe in space without spacesuits. They're constantly going in that rocket. Like, it's totally fine. And that made me do a double take when I watched the episode, because I'm like, that boy's not breathing in space. Oh, wait, right. Jimmy Neutron logic.
Suspend your reality for a little bit.
Yeah. They even make a joke where Jimmy's dad is like on the rocket. And he's like, wow, the G-force is really strong out here, son. I love Hugh Neutron, he's a gem. You see, when I was a boy, I sat on a banana.
And you know that changed my life forever.
Jimmy goes off to space, and then they're on the comet, and then Jimmy's like, Goddard, we don't want to lose the rocket, let's play some music on the radio. And then they go to do their mining, and then they come back to find this big old monster beating up on the rocket. And they're like, oh no! Goddard unloads his whole arsenal on this monster. In the game, it's a boss fight that is annoying, because since he's like invincible in the episode and Goddard shit doesn't work on him, for a boss fight, you just have to make it to your rocket and escape while he's hurling rocks at you. And it's a pain in the ass because they make it an ice floor, and the only way to actually get to your rocket is jump across the whole way.
It is a comet, so.
But it was just like ice physics done poorly. Like it definitely felt like it could have been done better. It does translate the idea from the episode that they can't do anything about this monster. They just have to get the fuck off the comet. Bringing it back to music. I'll spoil the episode, and sorry for spoiling Jimmy Neutron for you. Basically, the inspiration for Twonkies was Gremlins, where Gremlins, they start out all cute, but if you break the rules, they become ravaged little monster beast things. And Twonkies, it's the same thing with the specific rule of they hate music. So Jimmy was playing music out of the rocket so they could find their way back to the rocket. The Twonkies on the Twonkies comet. Twonkies, by the way, get their name from Carl, because Carl's like, oh, look at the little Twonkie, because it starts all cute. They hate music, the little Twonkies. Jimmy flies off the comet, he makes it back to Earth, and it turns out he has a little stowaway Twonkie. One ended up on his ship. But it's not the big old angry one that was destroying his rocket. It's just a cute little stuffed animal guy kind of like Kirby here. It's just like, oh, it's cute. Also, Carl falls in love with it because it's the only pet that doesn't trigger his allergies. There's even a scene in the pet store where Carl and his dad go to buy a pet, and they can't buy a fish in a block of ice because one of them is allergic to the block of ice. That's how bad these guys' allergies are in the Weezer house. But the Twonkie, hypoallergenic, super cute.
More hypoallergenic than ice.
Yeah, apparently, because it's from a comet. And so Carl makes it his pet, brings it in for show and tell the next day. Then during show and tell the next day, the Twonkie barfs out a bunch of babies. Like this small guy barfs out marble-sized Twonkies. Everyone has a baby Twonkie now. Then everyone around town starts singing lullabies to their Twonkies. And a la Gremlins, they all freak out on them and start attacking all the characters. Everyone except for Sheen. So Sheen has a bad voice in the episode. There's even a line where Mrs. Fowl, the teacher, whose voice, may I remind you, is like that whole thing, that's her voice. She calls Sheen's voice annoying, while she meanwhile has a super ear-grating voice. So that's kind of crazy. She's super out of pocket for that. But it's their way of saying in the show that Sheen has the worst voice of all time. And he doesn't even have a voice worse than Mrs. Fowl's, so I kind of disagree. But Sheen has such a bad voice that the Twonkies don't turn into their evil selves when he sings.
It's not considered music.
Yeah.
Joy from it.
Jimmy literally says, it's like anti-music. And Gene's like, yeah, hey! So he sings Home on the Range to put all the Twonkies in town to sleep.
Gene's voice is the antithesis of music.
Literally. He's all like, home on the range. They like do that joke like a couple too many times. But he puts the Twonkies to sleep with his dulcet tones. The game gets cool, I think, at the point where Carl brings in the Twonkies for show and tell. In the show, he brings them in for show and tell. Everyone brings them home. Home on the range. And it's at their individual homes on the range through a montage that all the Twonkies transform. And everyone comes back and says, Jimmy, what the fuck? In the game, they immediately, someone sings in class, and then the Twonkies like start raging out and attacking in the school. So in the game, you get to start capturing the Twonkies in the school, get a cool school level, you get a level where you run around Retroville and go to the candy bar, which is one of the other like big locations in the show. And that's where it starts really feeling like a Jimmy Neutron game. The levels start becoming really fun. The gameplay also gets really fun at the point where the Twonkies, you're like capturing them, because the game basically becomes Luigi's Mansion. The way you capture the Twonkies in this game is very, very similar to how you capture ghosts in Luigi's Mansion. You suck them up into your little machine, and there's like a little fighting a fish on a leash type of thing. You're trying to suck it in, and it's cool. It's really cool mechanics. Something that makes this inferior to Luigi's Mansion is the fact that it's played in an open camera space, and because of the way you're kind of fighting against the Twonkies, they're trying to break free of the tether you throw on them. The camera gets wonky at a lot of points, and you get locked behind invisible walls and stuff. And there's just some jank with the camera controls specifically that I think could have been avoided if they did more fixed perspective rooms. That's how Luigi's Mansion does it. Since you're in a mansion, every room you walk in, there's no camera controls. It's just a puzzle room, and you're controlling from the top down, and it really is conducive to that kind of gameplay. There's even, on the very last level before the boss fight in this game, there is a rooftop segment where it does that top-down camera angle like Luigi's Mansion, and it was like the most fun section of the game. If there was more fixed camera angles in this game, I think it would have worked better for the gameplay they had. It copycatted Luigi's Mansion, but didn't copy the part that counts. It got the gameplay, but it also needed to like construct the levels around that gameplay. Oh yeah, I made a note in here that there's like a shrink ray segment where in the school level where you're in the classroom and all the Twonkies start raging. There's a part where you barricade the door, or someone does, and then you can't physically move the barricade, but there's a little gap in the door that you could possibly go through. You've already at this point acquired a shrink ray, but the shrink ray only shrinks other enemies. As it so happens, by this door where the desk is propped up, there also is a standing mirror. You can stand in front of it, shoot it with the shrink ray, and since you're in the mirror, you do get to shrink yourself. And the effect of you shrinking, it wasn't like they made it fake out with a transition. Like, you fully see the room around you grow, and Jimmy, your character, stays the same, but they like make the body like wave a little bit, and so it feels like you're shrinking down in size, and then suddenly that small gap is this big opening that you can run through in the level. And they just did a really good job, like way better than I think this game has any reason to, of simulating that shrinking yourself down feeling. My words can only do it so much justice. I will definitely show the footage here of it happening to show what I'm talking about, but I was just really impressed. I was like, good job, game. Oh yeah, there's even a level where you get to run through Jimmy's house, and Jimmy's room and Jimmy's house was one of the most faithfully recreated parts from the show. Like, if you grew up watching Jimmy Neutron, getting at least to the level where you get to run through Jimmy's house, I think makes the whole experience worth it. I actually was transported back. I would have ate this shit up as a kid, because I was eating it up now as a 26-year-old. They did a really good job recreating certain parts of Retroville. Even like Jimmy's kitchen, you get to sit in their weird, like, I always forget that Jimmy Neutron's family has two tables. They have a table that they dine at for dinner, and then their kitchen also has a small little table that they sit at a lot. Yeah, they faithfully recreated the house, so it made me go like, man, this must be a kind of rich family. They'd be rocking 2 dining rooms. And Jimmy has a whole lab in the basement.
Our electric bill is crazy.
Yeah, dude's doing nuclear fusion in their basement. That can't be good for the electric bill. Oh yeah. Oh man, I'm glad I took notes, because there's like stuff I straight up forgot, but there was a lot of passion in this game. For instance, there's this one item called the speed shoes, which allows you to run around faster. But while you're running around, the music that plays is the funny chase music that they use in the show, which is like this stock piece of music. It's the one that goes do 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 do. That just randomly plays while you're using this speed up item. It's pretty awesome. Another thing in this game is there'll be little invention pieces, because of course you're Jimmy Neutron, boy genius. You have to invent stuff. And how they approach it, it's a pretty simple method. They'll leave a bunch of random items throughout the level, and once the items become relevant to help you progress in the level, you'll have naturally encountered certain invention pieces that allow you to invent the thing that allows you to progress to the next part of the game. And sometimes it's just a one-off invention, sometimes it's a purely aesthetic thing.
That's not good for my eyes.
One of the things you invent is this rust spray, which was from an actual episode where in the episode they break into an amusement park late at night with Jimmy. He uses rust spray on the lock and he busts the lock open. And in one of the levels you have to break into an amusement park by inventing rust spray. So that was pretty cool. Last thing I want to talk about with the Jimmy Neutron game is the bosses. After the first fake out boss where you don't really engage with the boss, they just throw a bunch of big Twonkies at you. One of them has lightning powers, one of them has ice powers, and another one has poison powers. And they all have different ways of taking them out, but these bosses weren't very fun. A lot of them were really long endurance tests. I would spend upwards of 20 minutes fighting these guys, just setting up, waiting for them to finish their patterns so I could get one hit in, chip off a fraction of their health bar, and rinse and repeat. It was Dark Souls levels of commitment to the boss without any of the challenge. They weren't really hard, but if you slip up and you lose and you've been spending like 10 minutes on the boss, it's not hard what you have to redo, but you do have to redo those 10 minutes you lost. It's a pain in the frickin' booty. Yeah, the bosses were just not really fun at all, with the exception of the poison boss. That one was cool because you had control of this light beam. You had it on the ground and then it summoned light from the sky and you were in a cave and basically you had to summon the light beam in the cave as he was crossing it in his pre-generated path. It was like a little bat flying around in the cave and then you hit him with light and he's like, ah, that hurts. And his patterns were more fun. He didn't take absolutely forever to finish off, so he was a genuinely fun boss with a fun pattern to figure out and take him down. If the bosses were more like the poison boss, I think I would have had a more positive opinion of them all overall, but the other ones didn't have fun patterns. They were truly just chores, and the final boss was just the first 3 bosses of poison, lightning, and ice all jammed together into one. So it was even longer because he was cycling through all of their attack patterns and he had all of their health, and yeah, it was a little painful fighting the bosses in this one. Despite all that, I actually beat this video game. Mr. Hero can't beat a video game past the tutorial Belleville beat this licensed kids game. Take that, critics. I'm glad once I started this one, I'm like, this is a very, like, finishable one. If I'm gonna be plugging away at this bucket list, I have to finish some of these games.
And not just quit at the tutorial.
Yeah, so I was like, I can finish this one. It only took, like, 8 hours, if that. Even the parts that dragged, the experience as a whole was breezy. And that's including watching the episode to go with it, which is fun. I recommend if you pick up a random license game like this to watch what it's referencing to see how they compare and contrast. Otherwise, if you're not a fan of Jimmy Neutron or licensed games, I wouldn't see why you would pick this one up. The best ideas it has are the shrink ray invention, which really that was just one moment in the game, and then the Luigi's Mansion mechanics, which just play Luigi's Mansion at that point.